Hi, I'm Shelley. I love your question about how do you accept being HIV positive and what are the phases that you go through. I have extensive experience in answering this question, but please be assured that everyone's experiences are different depending on their social support and other life experiences, education, resources. So this is just my experience. I have been infected with HIV since I was 14, so I'm going to be 50 in a year, so that's quite a long time, over 30 years. I found out I was infected at age 17 when the test became available. I was infected through my factor product that was a plasma-derived product to treat my hemophilia. When I first found out that I was infected at age 17, I was in huge denial. It was easy to be. I felt well, I was young, and I could very easily compartmentalize my life. I chose to ignore the others in my community of hemophiliacs who were getting sick and dying. I totally disconnected from them and said, that's them, that's not me. That's not going to happen to me. That's not going to happen to my dad and my brother who also had hemophilia. So huge denial and a lot of anger that anyone would try to talk to me about it. And underneath that anger was a lot of fear. I was terrified that I was wrong and knew deep down that I was wrong and that obviously the physicians were correct when they received the test results. They weren't going to tell me that if it wasn't true. But that anger and that denial was important to my life and my existence at the time because this was in the 80s. Society isn't fair to people today with HIV and AIDS, but it was even worse in the 80s. There were calls for people to be put on islands to live in a society of HIV-infected people away from the rest of the world. There were bullets shot through people's homes. There were children not allowed to go to school. People were losing their homes. People were losing their jobs. People were dying in front of all of us, and people were terrified. So I needed to protect the fact that I had HIV so that I could continue to live my life, which was to be a student and to get a degree and to work. I also needed to have the anger to give me the energy to do all of those things, because if I had slipped into a depression, I never would have accomplished what I did, which was entirely protective. My education gave me the resources for what I needed in the future, when I needed good care, for when I needed to deal with the issues that arose from my HIV infection. It gave me the resources and the wherewithal to share my HIV status eventually. So from that energy of that anger, I was able to get through 5 years of college. I got through the loss of my brother who died at age 13. I got my degree to teach. I was terrified I wouldn't be allowed to teach because I was this person with HIV. And that led me, actually, my experience of teaching led me to the next phase in acceptance of my HIV status. So I became a teacher. Nobody knew I had HIV, except for my husband, someone who married me despite having HIV. That's a whole nother story. But I was hearing these students talking about the risks that they were taking, having unprotected sex, drinking and using alcohol, and decreasing their inhibitions, and they were making terrible choices that I never had to make. I just was infected through medication, and I was getting increasingly irritated with people not understanding the choice and the option that they had. They didn't have to get HIV. They just needed to have the information and not make the wrong choice. So I turned to my husband and I said, and we were actually traveling somewhere in Europe or something, and I said, I have to share my status. I might lose my job. You might lose your job. He was a teacher at the same school. And he said, you know what? You do what you need to do. I needed to share my story to tell these kids, like, you don't understand. You do not want this. You don't have to have this. Use a condom. That's all you need to do. I thought it was that simple, didn't I? I was very naive. But so I came forward to this private school and thought I was going to get fired. Luckily, for a lot of reasons, again, I don't have time to go into today, I didn't get fired. A lot of people were questioning the safety for their children. I had to agree to only use the staff bathroom just in case HIV was transmitted through toilet seat sharing. I thought, even though that was ridiculous, I would go ahead and agree to that. That was not a battle I was going to fight, because the battle I was fighting was giving information to young people so that they could make the right choice and remain free of HIV. So at that point, I felt empowered, like, oh, I didn't have to carry this secret anymore. I felt like I could just carry the world, because I just felt so much lighter and stronger because I didn't carry this deep, dark secret. And at that point, like, who cares who knows what I have? I mean, I've already told everybody, if people don't like me because I have HIV, then they can go find somebody else. That's totally fine. And I figured if I had to go work wherever I could find work, I would do that, because I felt so much better by sharing. I also know realistically that if I were a homosexual male teaching and I shared the same story, it would have been a very different result. It would have been a very different outcome. So I feel incredibly grateful to be a white, blue-eyed, blonde female who got it through what people, I don't believe this, innocent means, which pisses me off to no end. It doesn't matter how people got it. It doesn't matter. People get it for a variety of reasons. And we all share the experience of having HIV, and it's bad. It doesn't matter how you get it. It doesn't matter who you are. Nobody deserves to have this illness, and nobody deserves to die in the way that people with AIDS do. So I had to deal with that. And so I had a different kind of anger, this righteous anger of, don't you dare separate me into a separate group from other people. Like, oh, there's homosexuals. Oh, there's people who are drug users, those who are promiscuous, those who are innocent, got it through blood products. That pissed me off beyond belief. And so I worked really hard for people to understand that that doesn't matter. It only matters so that you can remain free of HIV, knowing how it's transmitted. It doesn't matter once people are infected how they got it. So I spent a lot of time educating people about that. But then I started to struggle because I desperately wanted to have children. And at the time, we didn't understand how medication could reduce the rate of vertical transmission of HIV from mother to child to less than 1% with medication. That wasn't documented yet. I wanted to adopt. My brother was adopted, and it was a great experience, but I wasn't allowed to adopt through a private adoption because of my HIV status, nor was I allowed to adopt through international adoption because of my HIV status. But guess what? I was allowed to adopt through foster care, and my husband agreed that we would do this. And I was so lucky and gifted with the most amazing, beautiful children. My children, I have a daughter and 2 sons. While they have their challenges, everything that I have gone through with my hemophilia, with my HIV, and learning to advocate for myself and dealing with such challenges and such deep, deep distress and loss has made me the mother that I need to be for my 3 babies, who are not babies right now. Right now they're 14, 13, and 9. And this is 2016. And I am grateful that I've had the experiences that I've had. So I don't know if that answers your question. I agree with you. I don't think it ever goes in one particular order. I think it also goes on a cycle. It repeats itself, spiraling. There are many times still that I feel sad and depressed and angry. But I also, more often than not, feel hopeful and grateful for what I've learned and the lessons that HIV brought to my life and the people who brought it to me.